Hello, friends. Film Cubano here, and I've got a quick question for you all. Did you see Bros? Because I didn't. Bros is one of the recent rom-coms to release this year. It came out in theaters, and after the weekend was all said and done, it brought in $4.8 million on a budget of $22 million, meaning that the studio that made it is not going to be too happy with the money that the film brought in. And after this weekend, Billy Eichner went on the internet and essentially said that not enough straight people went to see the movie, specifically in certain parts of the country. Now, before we get into anything here, I feel like it is worth noting Billy Eichner did not say anything wrong. In fact, pretty much everything he said is correct. There are parts of America where a film like Bros about two gay guys falling in love is just not going to be shown. It's not going to be promoted. It's worth noting that there are about 4,000 movie theaters in the country, and 3,300 of them screened the film in its opening weekend. You tell me why you think there are 700 movie theaters that just did not screen a film in its opening weekend. However, I do think that there are more reasons than just straight people not going to see the movie, specifically in certain parts of the country. There are more reasons than just that as to why the film didn't perform as well as it was expected to. The first reason being, rom-coms are an extremely niche genre. Bros opened the same weekend as a movie called Smile, a horror film that opened in October. You know, the biggest horror movie month of the year. Now, what's weird about Bros coming out during the Halloween season is that usually movies like this come out in February, because whether or not the movie is any good, which Bros has gotten crazy good reviews, a rom-com coming out in February is almost guaranteed to turn a profit. Smile also got really good reviews, but you could throw just about any type of horror movie out there in October and people will go to see it. The horror fan base is a very dedicated fan base, but most of the time, those movies, good or bad, come out in October to capitalize on that Halloween season. Does anybody remember there was an episode of Arthur a few years ago that came out where it was revealed that Mr. Ratburn was marrying a dude? And that episode was the first and only episode to date of Arthur that was banned in certain states in America. Bit of a strange thing, because I watched the episode and Mr. Ratburn's wedding has nothing to do with the actual content of the show. There are parts of the country that think of themselves as more traditional that just don't seem ready to join the rest of us here in the year 2022. If you are taking the side of the parts of the country that do not want to show a movie like Bros, specifically because of the fact that it's two dudes falling in love, you're fighting on the wrong side. And I don't know how long it's going to take, but hopefully sooner or later you realize that. Now, aside from all this, I really think the only mistake that Billy Eichner made in his reaction to Bros underperforming at the box office is not taking into account all of the reasons why people may not have gone to see the film. For one, movies are really expensive. I live in New York City, and movie tickets here at the cheapest are about $20. You have to really financially plan going to see a movie into your monthly budget. You could sign up for one of the AMC Regal Movie Pass subscription services, but that locks you into just one theater, and any sort of indie films that come out, you end up paying out of pocket for those anyway. So a lot of moviegoers just don't want to be boxed into just seeing their movies through one theater chain. So because of the rising cost of movie tickets these days, a lot of people that go to the movies really have to pick and choose which movies they think they want to see in a theater and which movies they feel like they could probably get the exact same experience watching it at home on their TV. I saw a lot of trailers for Bros before it came out, and while I was interested in seeing the film, I thought the trailer was pretty bad because it felt like a smaller independent movie that was given this really over-the-top movie theater experience trailer that just felt sort of out of place. And I think this is a good time to bring up the sort of shift that's happened with just the way a lot of rom-coms are released these days. The rom-com genre has been fighting a real uphill battle for the last several years, and one of the casualties of this battle has been that most rom-coms these days are streaming releases. That's not to say that a rom-com can't come out in the theaters and do crazy numbers. It's just incredibly uncommon. The genre itself usually lends itself to being extremely predictable. Typically, you got two people who don't know each other when the movie starts, and they end up together in the end. Even some of the best rom-coms to come out recently have come out on streaming. Fire Island was one of my favorite movies of the year, but it was a direct-to-Hulu release. These movies just don't get big theatrical releases, specifically because of what happened to Bros. It's a genre that inherently doesn't make that much money. Now sure, you could go back to the 90s or the 80s where Billy Crystal and Tom Hanks were making rom-com movies. Those types of big names just don't exist in the genre right now. I think Billy Eichner is an example of someone who might think he's a little more famous and a little bit more of a draw than he really is. That's not to say that he's not an extremely talented, hilarious, funny, charming, all that great stuff, but Billy Eichner is just not a box office draw. And unfortunately these days, a movie getting crazy good reviews also doesn't guarantee it being a box office draw unless it has Iron Man, Thor, Batman, Wonder Woman all in the movie together. Actually, that sounds kind of cool. I think I would watch that movie. Matt Damon made this point about a year ago where the reason we get so many superhero, big budget action explosion movies these days is that the smaller films that are much more grounded are just a big financial risk, even if they're good. They need so much money and word of mouth in order to turn a profit that just doesn't happen these days. You're not going to sell out an opening night theater all across the country the way you would with any Marvel or DC or Top Gun Maverick or Avatar re-release. A lot of these smaller, more grounded films just inherently attract a much smaller audience. They don't have a broad appeal. And I do think there is something to be said for the fact that this is already a niche genre that now features an even more niche aspect of two gay dudes falling in love. I'm sure there are people who like rom-coms who, as soon as it's two dudes, shy away. And that's unfortunate, and I hope as a society maybe we get to a point in time where that's not seen as weird or strange or too woke, which, by the way, if you're somebody that still uses the word woke, please work on your vocabulary. I'm sure you can find something better. Now, while I have not seen Bros yet, I am excited to see it, but I'm gonna be honest, I'm not paying $20 to go see a rom-com. I'm waiting until it inevitably comes to Hulu or HBO Max or Netflix, because it just seems like typically when movies like this struggle incredibly hard at the box office in the opening weekend, they get sold to a streaming service so fast it's unbelievable. And as soon as Bros is out on one of these streaming services, you can expect me to tune in, and I am sure it lives up to the hype. I'm also a sucker for rom-coms, so regardless, I'm probably going to enjoy it. But I do think there are some additional reasons as to why this movie did not perform as well as it could have. Hopefully we get to a point in time where a movie like Bros gets just as much traction and makes just as much money as whatever the next Avengers film is going to be called.